Hi guys, my name is Amy, and I just wanted to make this video because I've been debating on whether I should make this for a while. My cat is wanting to get in the shot. I've been debating whether or not to make this for a couple months because I've been kind of scared to. I just don't really know how people are gonna take it because I don't know, I guess I just feel like my testimony is very unique and I've never heard anybody else's kind of like it, and so I've just been kind of nervous to make a video about it. But I've been feeling a prodding too from the Lord, so I decided to make a video on my testimony. If you hear noises, it's probably going to be my cat because I have one on my lap and then one behind me lying down back there. So, I guess to start off with, my name is Amy, and I'm almost 20 years old, and so I'll try to make this as organized as I can. So, I grew up in a Christian home and went to church every Sunday with my parents and my sister. But I never really had what I'd call a relationship with the Lord until I turned 10. My parents said that I got saved when I was 4, but I don't really remember it. I believe that I believed in God and loved Him, but I didn't actually make a commitment until I was 10 years old. But I didn't really stick closely to Him because I just let a lot of different things get in the way. Ever since I was little, I've had an obsession with TV and celebrities, and that used to be most of my life for a long time. I would really obsess over that stuff because I grew up homeschooled and I didn't really have any friends except for some of the kids my age at my church, but I still wasn't close friends with anybody there, and so I just didn't really have any friends, so I kind of considered the celebrities I liked to be my friends, you could say, because I felt a connection with them, because stuff on television has always been real to me, especially whenever I was younger. I'm able to relate with the characters and what's going on, and everything was very real to me as a kid, so I felt like I was actually friends with these people. And so since my parents are Christian, they didn't really let us watch anything new age, I guess you could say. We used to watch a lot of the old TV shows growing up, and I really got into it. I put a lot of my hope in television shows and celebrities. I based a lot about how I felt on them, and that continued for a very long time, until half a year ago. Hard to believe. But yeah, it's already been 6 months since I completely surrendered my life to Christ. So, just a little bit more background. I was pretty obsessed over different celebrities, just a number of different ones, until 2014. I was 14 years old, going to be turning 15 that year, and there was this guy, celebrity, on a TV show, an old TV show that happened in the 60s, that I developed a crush on, and I had a lot of different crushes at that time, and most of them were already dead, or at least 60 years older than me, because I didn't have any guys really that I was around that I could have crushes on, so I just fell in love with this celebrity guys. So I really started liking this guy, and about that same time I was going through puberty, so that had a lot to do with it too. So I don't know what it was about this guy that was different than all the rest, except for the fact that I had a lot in common with him. I felt like his him as a person. He'd already passed away by the time I started liking him, so it was just a normal thing for me. I didn't even really think it was weird that he was like 60 years older than me, because I had a crush on him whenever he was younger in the TV shows that he was in. So I started basing a lot of my life around him. I would freak out if I didn't get done with my school in time to watch him on TV, because I was homeschooled. I had a bunch of diaries that I would write out things in, and my mom and my sister, they never really understood, because neither of them are into that kind of stuff. And so they would say things that I took as hate against the guy and against me, because looking back, I can see and I know that the guy, he didn't live a very good life. He was abused growing up, and now I see why my mom didn't like him, but back then I thought she was just hating on me and hating on him, so I started to soon think that everybody hated me, and I started hating everybody. I was very far from God in this time, in the sense that I wasn't putting my hope in him, I was putting my hope in this guy. And I just based my whole life around this guy. I don't really know how else to put it. I just spent all my time thinking about him and wishing that I could have been with him, that he could like be here with me, but I knew that would never happen, and so that brought along a bunch of depression because I knew that I could never be in a relationship with him, obviously. And so because of that, I was very depressed. I slipped into very bad depression. I didn't have any friends. I thought my family was against me. I thought everybody else was against me. And around the same time, I started liking this other guy, somebody that was actually in my personal life. And he acted like he liked me, but there would always be other girls and things. And so that added more depression. And it wasn't long until thoughts of suicide came in. I never actually did anything, but I did think about ending my life, just because I thought if I couldn't have this guy, either one of them, then I didn't want to live, because I had put so much hope in them. I didn't even think about the consequences. I just had tunnel vision on these two guys, and it was very bad for me because I pushed myself away from everybody else. I would spend most of the time by myself, obsessing over pictures on my phone of the guy, videos, whatnot. And also, whenever we were growing up, we weren't allowed to listen to very much secular music. So I didn't really have any music that really forced me into a certain type of thinking. That comes later on. That'll be later on in the story. But the thing with this guy lasted for a year and a half, where I was depressed and I thought about stepping away from him because I knew it was bad for me, but I didn't care because I liked him and I wanted to keep liking him. So it was off and on to where I would, put him away for a while, forget about him, and then bring him back because I missed him. And I had put so much hope in him that without him, I felt like there wasn't anything for me. I didn't even, whenever I would pray to God, I still read my Bible every day. I still prayed to God, but only for me to get something out of it. Not to really have a relationship with God, just oh Lord, help me with this problem. And then if he did, I'd be like, thank you Lord, and that would be it. So I didn't really have a relationship with God. But on July 5th of 2015, I decided to give up this guy because I was completely done. I was completely fed up. I was very tired of feeling depressed and hating myself and hating my life. So I gave him up. I deleted all my videos, all my pictures of him. I stopped watching him completely. I tore down the poster I had of him in my room. I had like a 24 by 36 poster of him in my room, in our old house. So yeah, I was in pretty deep, but I do know that the Lord helped me walk away from him. But I did do it in a wrong way, I think, because I went from completely obsessing over him and loving him to completely hating him and loathing him and thinking terrible thoughts about him because I was afraid that if I thought one good thought about him that I would start to like him again and be trapped. So I lived with that for, I guess, 3 or 4 years, hating him for no reason, because he never did anything to me. He never met me. He has no idea that I exist. He died before I was even born. So I spent so much time just being repulsed by him, thinking he was just awful, convincing myself that he was the devil in a way, he was a demon, and that if he was ever portrayed in a good light to me, then it was Satan trying to get me to go back. So that lasted for a long time. Rewind back to 2015. I went for a few months without this guy, but I still felt very lost because I was putting my identity in the celebrities I liked instead of in who I am in Christ. So I was still miserable. And then I found another celebrity that I had the same type of connection with. It was a female celebrity this time, and that took the pressure off because I didn't have to be in a romantic state of mind. So I was able to appreciate her as a person and an actress because I definitely have a lot in common with her. But I ended up treating her practically the same way that I treated this other celebrity that I had liked for a year and a half. I would obsess over her. I would hoard pictures of her, videos of her, obsess by watching them over and over again. I watched them every night, and the reason I did that was because whenever I started liking the guy, I had taken videos of him on my phone to watch at night, and I was 14 back then, which it is weird, but not too weird for a 14-year-old, I think. But the thing with this woman was it lasted for 3 years about. Yeah, it did. It lasted 3 years where I would just watch videos, the same videos every single night. I didn't really know why, and I eventually just asked myself why. And it's because I had started that habit with the guy. Same with a lot of other things that I was doing with the girl, because it was just a habit. That's what I had always done with celebrities. I obsessed over them. I put them above God because that's just what I had always done, and I didn't even think about changing my thoughts. Satan had me so blinded into thinking that was the way it had to be, that if I liked a celebrity or a TV show, I had to obsess over it, think about it all the time, put my hope in it, and just exalt it above God whenever it's not supposed to be that way at all. Now, I still love TV shows, celebrities, as you can probably see from my wall. That's just a part of me that I do like that stuff. I like collecting like old articles and clippings and stuff like that, and that's what I consider to be my hobby. But it's a lot healthier now than it used to be 5 years ago, and that's definitely because of God. I don't really know if anybody has a similar story as mine. That's why I haven't really been wanting to tell this, because I don't know of anybody who has obsessed practically all of their life with celebrities and then realized that they're not all they're cracked up to be and then turned to God. Never heard that before, but I'm sure that there's other people out there who have similar stories, and so I'm hoping me posting this video will help them to see that they're not alone. And so to continue on with my story, with this actress, I obsessed over her like I did with the guy. I was able to meet a lot of her family on social media, which I was really grateful for, because they're still my friends to this day. I was able to meet a lot of friends over social media because of her, which I am grateful for, because of course they're still my friends. But I definitely took it too far with her. I got to where I felt like a motherly instinct toward her, even though she's, again, 60 years older than me. Just because I'm that way, I have very overly motherly instincts, if that makes sense, to anybody, and celebrities was the only people that I was around all that time. So I would get very jealous of her, I guess you could say. I would just be very upset if she was mistreated, and I do mistreated in air quotes because it was TV, it was television, it was fake. And I accepted it as reality for so long, and now looking back, I know that it's not. It's fake, it's scripted, it's not real. But back then, in my mind, it was real. But I would just get myself so worked up because she would maybe be mistreated on television, which she signed up for. She was paid to do what she did on television. She wasn't inappropriate, but just for instance, like, she was with a guy that I thought had maybe mistreated her in real life, or it's even so hard to explain because back then I was so blinded. It made sense then, but now looking back, it's like, what? I don't even understand myself. But I would get very mad at certain guys who were mean to her, even in real life. Her first two husbands weren't very good to her, and so I would be angry at them, and the anger from the first actor that I liked, I then copied with these guys that I didn't like, and anyone else I didn't like. I was very violent-minded toward people that I didn't like because I didn't want to like them in any way or say anything nice to them, because then I felt guilty, like I was doing something wrong. And Satan just had me blinded into thinking that hating people was okay, and it's not. And I didn't realize that back then. I mean, I knew God said that in the Bible he says anger is outrageous, but I still struggled with that a lot, just being mentally violent toward these people because I didn't like something about them, or they did something that I thought wasn't right. So fast forward to 3 years down the road, well, even a year in to me obsessing over this actress, I started feeling somewhat suicidal again, maybe 2 years in, because I felt Satan had me so tricked. I felt guilty that she might have died not knowing God, which is stupid because she passed away even before I was born. And obviously I couldn't have had anything to do with it. I couldn't have witnessed to her in any way, but I still felt guilty, like it was my fault that maybe she didn't know about God. And I didn't even realize it was a lie from Satan back then. I just obsessed over it, wishing if I had one wish, I'd go back in time and tell her about God, because I did have a heart for these people that I obsessed over. I wanted them to know about God. I wanted them to have a relationship with God. But each time I thought about it, why do I want this so badly for them? I wouldn't know the answer, because I didn't have that relationship with God. I didn't know why I wanted them to know Christ. It's just something that my parents had instilled in me from a young age, that we're supposed to be a witness for Christ and tell others about Him. And so that's just what I wanted for them, but I didn't even have that myself, so I had a very hard time relating to that. But I still had that desire to want to tell her about God so that I guess she could live a happier life. But she was already gone, so that was impossible, which made me feel hopeless. And I got eventually, in the beginning of last year, to where I started having very violent mental thoughts toward myself. They're even too much for me to try to explain, just too gruesome, I guess you could say. I started blaming myself for a lot that wasn't even my fault, thinking that I was a terrible person because she was mistreated. Satan just had me extremely confused. He also had me confused with another actor that came around about this time. Never told anybody about this before. Not even my closest internet friends, because I'm still ashamed of it. But I wanted to put it in the video because it is a part of my testimony. There was another actor that came along during the span of 2015 through the end of 2017. And I told myself not to get obsessed over him too, because I knew how it ended with the first actor. But being my immature self and being blinded again by Satan, I fell into that trap again, but this time it was a lot worse. I started listening to music of my own choice by this time because I was around 18. So I started making my own music choices, which was a very bad idea, because I began listening to music that I centered around, for instance, that guy that I was beginning to like, the second actor, and also the actress, because I didn't have a relationship. I've never had a relationship before, but I loved her as a human being, so I would, in a way, turn those songs toward her. I rarely ever listened to Christian music just because I was living in the flesh and I wanted to please my flesh by listening to some songs that weren't very good. And back in 2014, I began writing books just on my own time, never got any published, and the only reason I started writing them was because I would write stories about me and the first actor, and that eventually turned into me writing stories using different celebrities in mind, because of course that's all I thought about. And of course when I do write books, I like to be able to picture my characters, and so it made it a lot easier to use celebrities. So I would use the actress and the second actor, and it became very addicting because I could write something and read it over and over and actually feel it, as in romantic scenes or whatnot. So I got very carried away with it, and to a very unhealthy level. I would obsess over what I had written, what I could write. It got very sexually minded. Unfortunately, I fell into that trap of obsessing over that type of thing, and I do believe that had to do with the music I was listening to, and the books that I was writing, because it made me feel good, so I would write them and just meditate on them and think about them all the time. Because I liked being depressed too. It made me feel, which is another thing, just like wallowing in self-pity. That can be another trap that you can fall in. It's very hard to get out of. And so I was very depressed, of course, because I was not looking to God for my satisfaction. I was looking to fictional things of this earth that aren't of God. And it went on for, I guess, 2.5 years with the second actor, to where it was a lot of sexual things that had to do with the mind, the mental state. And I never talked about them before to anybody, and I even don't really want anyone to know about it now, but it's definitely a part of my testimony, so I felt like I had to put it in. I still deal with those temptations, but God has definitely been helping me through that. He's been giving me a lot of encouragement. He brings to me almost every time that I get overwhelmed with that subject. He brings to me the story of the woman in the Bible that was caught committing adultery, and the people who caught her brought her in where Jesus was and said that she should be stoned because she was caught in the act of adultery. And Jesus said, you who are without sin, cast the first stone. And of course everybody there had sinned, so they ended up walking away, and the woman said thank you to the Lord, and he said, your sins are forgiven and go on your way. And that just really has helped me over the years to see how he didn't condemn her and he forgave her. And so he definitely has been helping me through those sins that came with this second actor, and me just keeping my eyes off of God is what it really was. It was none of the celebrity's fault, of course. It was all my fault that I didn't keep my eyes on God, and I was trusting in superficial things instead of on things of God. I eventually, in the end of 2017, I decided I was done with the second actor. I purged everything of him out of my life that I could, and thankfully I've been a year clean from that, you can say. So that's definitely been a very big accomplishment that God has helped me overcome. I could not have done it without him at all. But I was still very caught up in the actress. And around the time that I started having the violent thoughts toward myself, I began forming a different personality. I felt like my inner self, all the mental problems that I had with sin, all the sexual temptation, all the violence, etc., that was in my mind, I decided to give that a name and a persona, and I started believing that I was two different people. Satan very much had me deceived in this as well, thinking that I was two different people. I don't believe that it was a demon inside of me, the other person, because I do know that I am a Christian, and I was a Christian before I actually surrendered to Christ. But it was definitely the devil speaking to me in the form of Justine, which was the name that I gave my other person. She was all the sins that I was committing, and it made me feel better because I could blame it on Justine instead of myself. So I obsessed a lot over Justine and the fact that she was her own person and Amy was her own person, and I didn't have to be concerned about Justine because that was Justine, that wasn't me. That had me extremely confused, as you can imagine. It's very confusing to consider yourself two people. And I told my mom and my sister about it, but they just kind of laughed, and not in a rude way, but they just didn't really understand, like, most of the things in my life up until that point. I got to where I didn't really like to talk about anything internal because I felt like nobody understood. Another reason why I didn't really want to make this video, but and so I was just very boggled down, as you can probably imagine, with all the sin that was in my mind from the past 3 years, and the violent thoughts toward myself and to others. Of course, that is very draining, and thinking I'm two people is very draining. Thinking that everybody's against me is very draining, and not having anything to lift me up, to spiritually feed me, was just left me hungry, for a lack of a better word. And then on August 22nd, 2018, I was sitting at my desk. I don't even remember really what I was doing, but I just remember that I was so fed up with everything. So fed up with feeling like two people. I didn't even feel human anymore. And I'm not quite sure what I said, but I just cried out to God. I said, God, you have to help me because I don't even know who I am anymore. I don't even feel human. I feel like two different people. I was just a mess because I had taken my eyes off of God. I barely spent time in the Bible. I would read maybe like a little half of a chapter every night. I would rarely ever listen to Christian music. I would drown out anything like the messages in church because I don't know, it was Satan, I guess, just trying to get me to rebel and turn away. And I'd listened to him up until that point thinking that I was doing just fine. And like I knew that some of the stuff I was doing was a sin, but I tried to push that away, and Satan sugarcoated it and tricked me into thinking that, oh, it's not as bad as what it seems. But that can definitely spiral downward very quickly. It's very easy to fall into all those traps if you're not careful. Believing one lie leads to believing another lie, and leads to believing all the lies. So on that Wednesday, August 22nd, I just surrendered everything. I decided to stop saying, okay, God, you can have my life, but just not this, and not this, and not this, but you can have everything else. I decided to give it all to him, everything. And my life has completely changed since that day. Not really like the life I live day to day, really, and like how I go out and do things, but just like my spiritual life and my mental health. And it wasn't helped by drugs or a psychiatrist. It was God. It was God. He healed me. And I'll never be the same, in a good way, since August 22nd. So, after I surrendered to God, I started thinking about everything that I was doing. I started questioning it. Like the little habits I had with celebrities where I would it was just second nature to do, like to watch videos of them on my phone every night, to feel like I was letting them down if I didn't pay attention to them, which is stupid, but it's just the habits I had built when I was 14 years old, and I was carrying it into being 19 years old. And I just started realizing how dumb that was and how immature that was. I was very ritualistic. I hated change. As you can tell, I acted the same from 14 to 19 pretty much. So it was definitely a process, but God has cleared up so many cobwebs that were in my mind. And all it took was surrendering to him and putting him first for once. So, around that time of August 22nd, okay, I was thinking about not putting this part in the video because I guess maybe Satan's trying to keep me from telling my story, but this is a huge part of my testimony as well. So I'm going to share it anyway, and even if I do have people not quite understanding, I guess I'm kind of used to that because I've dealt with that all my life, people not really understanding me. But around the time of August 22nd, whenever I surrendered my life to God, and I was trying to get my mind off of the celebrities that I had been obsessing over, I started watching this new TV show. And as odd as it may seem, I do definitely believe that the Lord brought it into my life for a million reasons that I'm going to tell you. And I've never heard other people say, oh, God has used this celebrity or TV show in my life to help me. But I definitely believe that he did in this case. In watching this new TV show, I was able to get my mind off of what I had obsessed over in the past, and I was able to realize that, oh, I can like a TV show, I can like celebrities, I can have my hobby, but not make it my life, but not obsess over it, but keep God first. And in that, and in realizing that truth, I definitely learned a lot. Just a couple of things that I learned was to not put my hope in things other than God, because they will disappoint, and that God should be first, and not celebrities, or not friends, or not possessions, not money, not anything that you can name, but that God should be first. And I was able to finally let go of all the hate that I had stored up in my heart for all those years. It came in kind of what you might consider an odd way, but one of the actors that I hated back whenever I was obsessing over this actress, it was a stupid reason to hate him, but I just had a long list of actors that I hated because of what? Because Satan had tricked me into thinking that because they were doing something I didn't like, that I had to hate them. And so there was an actor on an episode of the new TV show that I was watching back whenever I surrendered to Christ back in August. And I was dreading watching it because I didn't like to watch or listen to anything by the guys that I hated because I hated them. And I decided to watch the episode anyway. And it opened my eyes to see that the reasons I was hating these people, it wasn't they weren't the problem. I was the problem, because I was hating them because I had made them into such a big obsession. I had made them into something bigger than what they actually were. I had put more importance on them than what was supposed to be, and I blamed them for that because I was hurt, because I was the one that made the mistake. And that really opened my eyes to forgiving all the people I hated, even people in my personal life that I had grudges against. I was able to forgive because of that. I've been able to learn that at the end of the day, God is definitely the most important thing, and that you should work on building your relationship with Him instead of obsessing over anything. And I definitely saw a change in the way I thought when I changed my music. I never thought I would ever do this, but I started only listening to Christian music, and I've been that way for about 5 or 6 months now. And it has definitely changed my outlook immensely. I can tell a big difference. And I changed the media I was watching on YouTube and on television. That has definitely helped a lot. So I encourage you, if you're feeling some of the ways that I used to feel, like depressed and anxious and violent, that you cut out the kind of music you're listening to for a while and just listen to Christian music. I know some people think it's boring, but there's a lot of genres of Christian music out there, and I'm sure you can find something if you just look, because I definitely used to think that Christian music was boring and I didn't want to listen to it. Then I was able to find a lot of Christian music that I actually like and I actually enjoy listening to, and I don't want to listen to the other music now because I see how it was negatively affecting me, and I just would rather have my mind on God instead of instead of songs about such flighty things like emotion and feelings. I'm not saying that all those secular songs are bad. It's just my preference is that I don't like to listen to them anymore. And that's just what has worked best for me. So, all in all, I guess that my point is, if you have been watching this and you've thought of things that you're obsessing with, whether it be celebrities like it was with me, or greed, or having the most friends, or being popular, or just anything really, it can be anything that you find yourself obsessing over, and you can tell that it's negatively affecting you, because back then I knew that it was very toxic for me, but I didn't care because I told myself I would rather have how I was living than my sanity, because Satan had me fooled. So if you feel that way, like you've gotten so far down into your obsessions that you haven't even stopped to take time to build your relationship with Christ, or that you've pushed yourself so far away from other people that you're just isolated in this obsession that's really not going to get you anywhere. Once you die, you're never going to have that again. What you are going to have to live with is the decision you made before you died, which was, did you give your life to Christ, surrendered to Him, and you'll live eternity in heaven, or did you spend so much time in your obsession and in your sin that you neglected Christ, that you didn't accept Him, and you're going to have to spend eternity in hell? That's how it is at the end of the day, and when you die. So you have to think about those things. So if you feel that you're just as confused as I was, and then that there's not really any way out, that you're just so far buried under all this shame, just know that you can get out, because I got out, and God is continuing to help me. I don't feel depression anymore. There are days when I'm sad, of course, but it's definitely not the same type of depression I used to have. And He's teaching me new things every day, and that's comes from spending time in the Bible and by praying and not spending so much time on the things of this world. I believe that it's okay to like your job, for instance, but not to obsess over it, to like TV celebrities, but not obsess over it, to like your boyfriend, your husband, your spouse, but not obsess over them. Like, obviously you're going to love them, and you're going to, like, you've probably promised your life to them if you're married, but you can function in the world without obsessing over every little thing, without obsessing over your hobbies. You can still enjoy them, I believe, to an extent, but you shouldn't make them your life, because God should be your life, and your relationship with Christ should be the most important thing. So I know this is a very long video, but I didn't really plan anything out before I started, so I'm kind of just rambling. But I really hope that this has blessed you in some way, and if you have had a similar experience or want to share your testimony in the comments, feel free to do so. And I hope that you all will have a good day, a good night, a good week, and just remember that at the end of the day, God is the most important thing. Bye.